I'm still working on Tuesday nights to get that sorted out because it's recorded to the computer somewhere rather than to the iCloud. So
right,
already.
but you're going to have to upload it. You're going to have to upload it somewhere to share it.
Yes. So I'm gonna upload it to YouTube. So I'm gonna create a YouTube channel. Is what somebody told. So can I talk to you in the morning, Jean?
Say what, huh?
If I talk to you before 9, you'll.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at my desk at 7:30.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just know that's a good time to talk to you. So welcome everybody to SoulSong with Ann Reeves. Welcome back, Ann Reeves. We're happy to see you again. Everybody want to wave to Ann? Just wave your hands to wave to Ann. Hey, Ann.
Hi again. So nice to be back.
All righty. So if everybody could mute themselves. It's easier than me muting you all because then I mute myself. So Ann will take it away and you can do your thing.
All right, that's great. Well, thank you very much. I have been working here learning this. Thank you very much to you guys. You've taught me a lot. And I've had now 2 sound bath evenings, and I've got another one scheduled for next Wednesday. So I'm going to be holding them every Wednesday night, about 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So please feel free. And I think it's set up on the website, so it's making sense finally. So that's great too. Now tonight, what we thought we'd do is put out what I'm doing and what it is that we're talking about when we talk about SoulSong analysis. So let me share my screen here, and let me just see if I can do that. See, I'm learning too. There you go. All right. Oh, and I even, look at that. I even have a laser on my screen. Now, can everybody see that one? Yep. Okay, good stuff. Okay, thank you. Okay, so basically, I came into this thinking there are a couple of things that I can offer, and it has resulted in me doing a whole switch around of my whole way I'm thinking, in that I can set people up with bowl consultations as well as a sound bath. So this has been a real bonus for me in some ways. I mean, it's not easy for anybody, but now just a minute here, I'm going to have to go down and I'm going to have to go over to this. Okay, so that I can see what I'm doing. No, that's not it. Okay, there you go. Okay, so these are complimentary services. I want to help no matter what I do. This is really my passion. I took on the bowls in my life because I felt that everybody had to have one. I started with bowls over 35 years ago, and the first bowl I had, it took me 2 days to get. We were traveling down in the south, and we'd stopped at a motel, and we were out just traveling around the next day. And it was about 2 hours away when we stopped at a little spot, and I went in and saw this little 12-inch, well, not little, but it was a 12-inch root bowl. And I played it, and I thought, oh, that is so neat. And back then, there weren't a whole lot of crystal singing bowls around. So I took it, and then I said, I wonder how much that is. Well, it was over 300 US, and I looked at that and I thought, ha, there's no way I'm paying 300 US for a salad bowl. So I walked away. We went back to the motel, and you know, it called to me all night. And I'd never had that experience before. I had never had anything actually call to me. And thank God my husband was so patient, because in fact, we did go back the next day. So I mean, it cost me several hours of traveling and learning, but we did go back and get it. And it was such a powerful experience that I felt that everybody should have one, as a salad bowl or otherwise, but they should in fact have that. So that's been kind of my mission working with this. And that's then my whole premise when I'm talking about getting it. So there we go. So now what do I do with my bowls? Some of the things I do, I call it soul coaching, because people can kind of relate to it. But what's happened is that there have been 2 different procedures and processes that have come through to me through that knowledge we get from the matrix of knowledge of all there is. And one of them is a SoulSong Analysis. And the SoulSong Analysis is actually a software program, and it uses the data in your voice to identify your individual sound frequencies. Now, we know that the frequencies we have in our body can be identified through the voice. So what I do is and I'm going to show you here today, the basis for which we're working here, okay, is this right here. There is only one of us. And this is quite a shift for many people, because a lot of people say, yes, we're all one, but then they talk about source as being a separate entity. So there's this conflict that's going on. And what I say is, you know, if you go up to the ocean water and you say, and you take out a bowl of ocean water and a cup of ocean water and a pot of ocean water, you have different vessels, but it's all ocean water. So when you apply that to source, we're different vessels, but we're all source. And that's one of the things that I have, that I really want to use as a base. And I found it has really made things make so much more sense when I relate back to that. So with our voice reflecting the frequency of our soul and where we are, and of course we come into this planet, we are not in harmony, because if we were in harmony, we wouldn't have to be here. I don't know about you, but I'm here because I have lessons to learn. I don't always know what the lessons are, and they have many times come back around several times until they whack me over the head, and you just keep learning this lesson. But what I have found with this SoulSong Analysis, it's been able to really help me identify what lessons I meant to learn. And once you know those lessons, then it's a lot easier to learn them. So take a look. I'm just going to give you a quick view of what I do, so analytically you can understand what I'm doing with the SoulSong Analysis. What happens is that if you take a look here, there's a graph here, and here are all the chakras, the notes of each of the chakra. Well, what I do is I have the client speak to me in a bass neutral tone. For example, that just take me for a walk around your house and tell me all the things you see. And what I will do is the tones will hit, and I'm going to show you here. This is what happens. I will get a certain number of hits on each tone, and some of them won't come up at all. And you can see here, this person doesn't have any notes in C in her voice at all. So you know that that particular chakra needs some help. So then once they've done a bass, I also have them talk about something that they find stressful. And that changes. You'll find there will be different numbers here. Different chakras will be affected different ways. And then I have them talk about their vision. What happens if everything is absolutely perfect? So the numbers looking like that don't do a whole lot for anybody. I mean, you can't really see anything. So what we do is we change it over into a grid, which makes it a little bit easier to see. You can see this person comes from the base of the heart a lot, whereas they don't really feel safe, because that's what the root does, okay? And I don't need to go into analysis about this, but you can see that this, in fact, tells you a lot. Now, these are not all from the same person. So you can see here you have an average, and what you want when they're all integrated is you want them to balance out. So if you see this is the low point here with the sexuality, that's where they want to be involved in life, then that's what they may want to work on. Okay, so once we've done that, then what I'll do is I'll change it over to a chart that I really like to use, because it kind of goes up. You can see it where it is on the body. And here's an example of one with the base, and you can see how that changes when they go into stress mode. When they go into stress mode, you can see they change. They no longer use their intuition of the A, okay, of the third eye. The third eye disappears. So in base mode, they can access that, but when it goes into stress mode, they don't. Here they have a problem. So this is what happens when you get back, we can talk about this. Now, the interesting thing is that this will identify where things happened in your life. For example, when I go to the 7 chakra, each of these chakra that we're talking about deal with the years in the first 7 years of your life. So in the first year of your life, the C chakra, the C, the root, you're dealing with safety. How safe is it to be on this plane? The D, how safe is it to express my soul identity? E, how safe is it to follow my soul purpose? And so on. So there are lessons in the first 7 chakra that will cycle around the rest of your life. And you can tell where those lessons are based upon the frequencies here. So what we do then, and you know, either the SoulSong analysis or the Soul Zipper can be done separately. I find it useful to do it together, but that doesn't mean you have to. They can be done separately, and I charge $110 for each of them, and so it actually saves you $20 if you 10% if you do the 2 of them together. So what we do is we use the crystal singing bowls, and we unzip the chakra, and we adjust the inner truths that we learned as children. So between the ages of 1 and 7, all sorts of things happen. And depending upon the perception of the child, they will see that as being an issue with themselves. And the reason that happens is children between the age up to the age of 7 cannot visualize or imagine anybody else being responsible for anything in their life. For example, dad leaves, the child will automatically look for a cause and effect reason. So dad left. I spilt my cereal and he was cross yesterday. Now, to us as adults, it sounds kind of, why would they think that? But the reason they do that is because it's one of the lessons they were meant to learn coming into this the earth plane. And what this is this acts as a touchstone for them to be able to learn that lesson. And their perception of that may be, I'm not worthy of love, therefore dad left. Or it may be, I just not good enough, and that may be something they have to learn. So depending upon, or it may be everybody's going to leave me. That may be another lesson they have to learn, that people don't leave because we're all one, you can't leave. But the child's perception will trigger that touchstone the rest of their life. So what we do is the child develops a lens through which they see the world based upon what they see as the truth. Now, at our age, there isn't one of us who doesn't know in our head that we are worthy of unconditional love and acceptance. Knowing in the head is different than knowing in the heart. So what we do is we use the Soul Zipper to unlock the chakra and go down and replace those truths we learned as children and move towards where we want to be in that space and accept that there is a different truth out there. And what that does is it actually changes the lens that we then look for. And what I've heard and I've experienced is that in about 21 days after going through this Soul Zipper, people will say to me, I would have responded like this to that stimuli. And I didn't feel the need to do that anymore. And that's when they really understand what has taken place, that there has been a subtle change that has, in fact, dominoed all the way through. So when we do this, we take, and let's assume we want to have we would love to do this, right? And have all of our chakras in harmony all the way down. Well, once we do that, of course, we don't have to be on the earth plane. So that's not going to happen for a while. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm nowhere near that. So if we come into this plane, looking like this with our frequencies out of harmony like this, you can see this person may want to work on their thymus here, or their pineal, or their throat chakra, because what we eventually want to do is just bring them closer and closer. And by changing the lens through which you see the world, we always look for things that support our truth. So if we start off at the age of 7 thinking we're not worthy of love, unconditional love and acceptance, then what we do is that becomes our truth, and we look for anything we see, we interpret according to that truth and to prove that truth. So we need to change that truth so then we can look for things that support a different truth. And eventually we'll get there. And what's important in that is that the truth is relative, not absolute. And once you have, in fact, unzipped all those chakras, then you go through and actually replace that and create a different lens. Okay? So this is just another thing. So with the soul coaching, you can do the SoulSong analysis separately and the Soul Zipper separately, or you can take a SoulSong session here for 2 hours, and it takes about 2 hours. And you know, I'm not picky on the time. Basically, sometimes it takes a little longer than 2 hours, and that's just part of the way I operate. Okay, so but I find that this has been really good. And then, of course, I also offer 6 sessions for the price of 5. If somebody thinks that they're ready to do a lot of change, then that works. In some of the workshops I do, I take some classes on frequency and sound therapy, and this is really interesting, being able to do that on and how to sing your soul song. So number 1, the stage 1 is actually a prerequisite for stage 2, because what I try and do here is recognize the commonalities between all healings. Every single healing or type of healing that we do is meant to increase the harmony. It's as simple as that. We do it in different ways, but they're all meant to do the same thing. So if we can stand back and understand how that works and what harmony is, this is a really good base for that. And then what I do is I go into using that, I go into that and say, how do you identify the lessons? Because there is a lesson in every year of our life that we are meant to do. And actually, I should have put something behind me instead of this, because I could have shown you the spiral of lessons here. And I may do that. Okay, and then of course I do training for the practitioner, for those that have completed that, to understand how to apply. And this is interesting. None of these require the crystal singing bowls. I happen to love them, and I use them in my practice. But this is a schema that will work in any practice. And that's what I like about how this schema works. Okay? So I guess I can say any questions.
I'll unmute everybody. If people want to put up if you put your hand up, and then I can call on people who have a question for Anne on the, let me see if any questions there?
Okay.
And I found I've done this with you, and I found it quite enlightening, because you don't know my personal history.
No, I don't.
And from doing this, you nailed it. And so, as many of you know, my father died when I was 2, and so that comes up in the soul song, definitely, and my life lessons come up from that. Feelings of abandonment, and definitely that, did I do something wrong, not knowing back then, right? And so I found it very fascinating to do this. And so I think I'm at 2 weeks into doing the inner child. Maybe you could talk about like the inner child work, and noticing and noticing some changes there. So maybe you could talk about that, because I think that's a good piece, that there's that follow-up.
Okay, that's great. And somebody's asked, Paula has asked, are the classes in person or online? And I have, up till now, done them online. And I didn't really, because of course we've just got the Zoom, but it really is very much available. Now I would do them online, basically. And I've had many people before ask me if I could do classes online, and I didn't have the faintest idea how to do it. So now that I do, I know I've got a number of people from out west. They're not going to come in here in order to do the class, obviously. So this makes it accessible then to everybody. So Cindy was mentioning talking to the inner child. And part of what I do is during the Soul Zipper, when we go down and we actually unlock all of the chakras and we go down into the root, we're at our very base level. And what we do is we take the time to sit down and talk to our inner child. Now, what happens is it's really important that we put that into perspective, because what we tend to do when we think of our inner child is we bring our baggage in, okay? And that's what I wanted to avoid. So what I try and say is, you know what? I want you to imagine your very first grandchild and the absolute awe and love, overwhelming love that you feel for this child. And that's the person I want you to imagine and I want you to talk to. Now, in the back of your mind, I know, you know that's really you. But I know there's no baggage when you see this new grandchild. That's the difference. So what I want you to do is I want you to talk to this, and I want you to tell this grandchild what safety is. What does this grandchild need to know in order to feel safe, in order to fulfill their purpose in this lifetime? And what you're doing is, you know, on one hand that you're talking to yourself, but because you can be a little bit more objective, it allows it to flow a little bit more. And then what we do is we follow through with that for a period of time, just to increase your awareness of what's going on. And Cindy, I'm so glad to hear that you've noticed some changes happening. And that awareness is so important, because what I ask people to do is I want you to take what you have written to this grandchild, and every morning when you get up, I want you to hold it, because you've got your senses, all of your senses. Let's use all of your senses. Hold it and read it aloud with your voice, so that you're not only speaking it, but you're hearing it. Same going to bed. And it's not going to change whether or not it happens. What it does do is make you aware of the changes that are happening. Okay?
The other thing I noticed in doing that is that my childhood wasn't that bad, but your perception is to remember the negative things. But, you know, we didn't have fences between yards. You came home when it was dark. You played outside all the time. We had a creek in the backyard. We had a lake a block away. And so it really made me more aware of, there were a lot of good times. It's just sometimes the bad times just get stuck in your memory, I guess would be the way to put it.
Well, and not only that, those bad times, they're a perception. And somebody else in the same family would have a totally different perception, because those weren't the lessons they were meant to learn. So they would talk to you and say, what do you mean that happened? There was nothing like that. And it would be as if you were in two different families, because it wasn't part of their lessons coming into this plane, right? And one of the key things I've found, and as hard as it is if you can move to gratitude, you can let go of the cord that holds that bad feeling about the lesson. And that's a really hard thing to do, because everybody says, well, if you forgive, then it's gone. Well, you know what? It isn't. When you forgive, I mean, it's a step in the direction, but it really isn't gone. You're still tied to that person, because now what you've done is it's almost like a judgment. I'm good enough to be able to forgive you for that. And it is a big step to take, and there's nothing wrong with going there. But when you can stand back and look at that, jeepers, if it hadn't been for that idiot, I wouldn't have learned this. You know what I'm saying? And I say that in jest, but the reality is for us not to think about them in really negative terms. But as long as you're doing that, you're still corded with them. Okay? What you have to do is forget about that and say, you know what? Somehow we contracted before coming into this plane, the two of us contracted for me to learn this lesson. I didn't know, and neither did this person know what it would entail for me to learn this lesson from them. So when I think of my dad, who happened, he was an abusive person, but I have to stop and I think, okay, I can spend my life focusing on that, or I can say, you know, when he chose to take on this role, he did so out of absolute love. Because there's nothing but that when you're at source and dealing on a soul level, correct? So when you're on a soul level, you know the agreement is made with unconditional love and acceptance. There's no malice there. So when they come into the plane and you're working together on a plane for the lesson, as I said, you know, my dad took on the role of being an a-hole so that I could learn this lesson. How grateful should I be for being willing to do that? Okay, so that's, and you know what? It might be a head game, I don't know. But what it did do for me was bring me some peace. Because I could look at that more objectively. And you know, we made absolute peace. And there's going to be some people in your life whereby you're never going to be close friends with, you know, yeah, I really appreciate the lesson you taught me, but I really don't want to be part of your life because we're different frequencies. And there's nothing wrong with that. Am I blathering, Cindy? I hope not. I get off on my tangents here.
No, I thought that was helpful. Would you be able to go back to, I think it'd be beneficial if you could go back to the SoulSong, the chart, and just do a little bit more about stress, because as healers, we see, you know, using the pendulum, seeing the stress, and maybe speak a little bit more there, how on that chart you have, how it changed.
Okay, let me see if I can just, I'll have to open that up again. Now, the interesting thing is that you're not going to, I mean, this isn't one person, so you can't see this particular change, okay? Let me, no, and I didn't set up one specific person because I didn't want anything to be there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so, but, okay, so let me just, okay, so if you take a look here, under the base, these will change, and let me, oh, I know what we could look at. So, okay, I can see where, yeah, okay. So here we have here, okay, this one will show you the difference. There's one person here. And if I'm looking at this, here is when she is.
Do a share, and you need to do a screen
just
share.
A moment. Yep, thank you. Okay, I've got to find where I am. No, I don't want speaker view. I want full screen and share screen. There we go. Okay, can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you have here is, if you take a look, and I don't have that. I don't have my laser here, so I'm going to see if I can't find that. There we go. Okay, so we got the base, the stress, and the vision. So this particular person would be able to really keep it together fairly well on a regular day. But you know, a lot of that is driven from her feeling of not being safe. So what's happened is that she has worked really hard to put together a persona. And that's the age of 2. What happens is we take a look and see how safe is it to be who I am. And a lot of things will affect that. For example, maybe mom is pregnant and really, really tired all the time. So dad is saying, oh, stop bouncing around. You got to be really quiet. You just, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And it could be as simple as that. With there's no intent there to be uncomfortable. It could be such a thing as, gee, I'm a little girl who like to play with cars. Well, little girls don't play with cars. Little girls play with dolls. And things like that, that will affect the way you perceive it is safe to be and be myself. And so what happens is the degree to which I feel safe expressing who I am at a soul level, or the degree, or if I don't feel safe, then I create a persona that I project to the world because it's safer to do so. And you can see this person has no safety, so chances are here she's very strong with the persona that she's developed, okay? And she has built her soul purpose based upon that. So she can go along very, very well, but a lot of these, take a look at the base. The base is safety. She doesn't feel safe. She has built all of this, okay, to give herself the illusion of feeling safe. When she's under stress, okay, she will pull back. Okay, she will pull back and really go back to not trusting her intuition, and she won't trust who she is as being source. If you take a look over here, on a daily basis, she knows that we are all one, and this is how I see myself. But when it's stressed, the real person comes out here, okay? And not the real person, the persona comes here, and she can't quite manage to let either one out, okay? Then in her vision, now look at how interesting this is, because in her vision, she doesn't see a whole lot in the spiritual mode here at all. The reason is she doesn't feel safe to do so. Okay, so when you look at them all, it's the difference there, and each one is absolutely individual. So when you're looking at her as an integrated, you can see how integrated wise this is creating a big influence. So what she does in order to compensate is work with her soul, her projected image, who she is, her soul, like her identity, and what she's meant to do. And that's all she can focus on, okay? So this is kind of like what she knows in her head, but she can't get it through to the heart yet, because this is what's in the heart. This is what's in the heart, okay? Now there are 2 things going on here as well. If you take a look at the 7th chakra and the sharps, the 7th chakra are where your lessons are. The sharps are how you learn your lessons. So here, she learns a lot of her lesson here through the C sharp and the D sharp. Now the C sharp is the sexuality chakra. Now it's got nothing to do with sex. What it is it's like intercourse with life, the involvement in life. So this is one of the ways that she learns her lessons, her life lessons that have been contracted. The D sharp is balance, learning that balance. So she really focuses on trying to balance things. And you can see this. Mentally, she can really balance. She's quite able to do that, but she just can't quite get it from the head to the heart. So if you take a look now, the next one up would be the F sharp. And the F sharp is a very interesting chakra. And I'm going to ask a question here of you, and I'm wondering how many of you. Okay, I'm going to stop share because I want to ask a question. Okay, how many of you have found yourself after doing a session with a client whereby you have the same symptoms they did? Yeah. The reason that happens is because you're coming from the heart chakra. Let's face it, we do this energy work out of love. Okay, but when you're coming from the heart chakra, there's the opportunity on the physical level for there to be a cording, which means that it bounces back to you. What you need to do is come from the high heart. The high heart is the unconditional love and acceptance as a soul entity, as source. So in other words, I absolutely love and accept you as a human being, but this is your baggage. Okay, so I can do that. And when you're coming from the high heart, that's the difference. Okay, so just something there that you may not have realized for any of you. And some of you will have done that probably just by accident, found that out, whereby you can, whether it's by protecting yourself, putting protection around you, putting the white light around you, what you're doing is you're moving yourself into a space of being source. You're moving yourself out of the physical into a safe space whereby there's not that need or there's not that bouncing back. Okay? Any more questions about that? You were able to see that okay?
And I have a question whether you might be able to play a crystal bowl, but I don't know. Are you in the same room as your crystal bowls?
I am actually. Okay.
Would that be easy for you to do? Lorraine ask.
I can do that. Here is join, because I don't know if you will be able to hear them because the speaker is this way and the bowls are all that way. I'm not even sure I can turn this around so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Okay, but I can turn on my tablet if you wanted to, and that way you could see the bowls. Okay. There's some questions here too. Okay. The sharps. Heather, did I explain the sharps okay for you? Or did you want the rest of them?
The rest of them, please.
Okay, so when I'm looking at, okay, so we talked about the high heart, then the G sharp is the joy you get out of life. And let's face it, if we find joy in something, we're meant to do it. Okay, so that's how you learn a lesson there. If you're getting joy from something, then you're meant to do that. And then the last one is the pineal, A sharp. And the pineal is very similar. And I'm giving you information, don't forget that I go in much more detail through in the courses. But the B, or the crown, acts as a synthesis for all of those 7 sharps, all of those 7 regular notes. And that is the degree to which you see yourself as source, as a being of source, as a being source. The A sharp does a very similar synthesis for all of the sharps, and that is the degree to which you overall deal with your lessons and how you learn your lessons. Okay? So let me turn on and join from the tablet, and then I will do that. Hopefully we don't have any too much feedback, or any feedback, hopefully.
While she's doing that, I'll let you know that Yolande Boulay-Douglas will be our presenter on Tuesday, April 28th, and she's going to be doing the harmonization technique and a meditation. And I'm bribing her to do it in French and English, so we're going to negotiate that over the weekend. So Yolande teaches all 5 levels of healing touch, lives in Quebec City, and has been teaching for over 20 years. And she's just a joy and a delight. So I'll be sending that link out tomorrow. So I just thought I'd give you that upcoming workshop with her. And I'm talking to Marcia tomorrow about her coming back to do toning and chanting. So I just keep sending her positive vibes. I've given her 2 days to think about it. So I'll unmute people for a minute there. There you go. You're unmuted now. Alrighty.
Could she, if she just hit the camera to reverse it?
Say it again, Therese.
Could she not have just hit the camera to reverse it so she can see the back? The sound is still going to resonate, I believe.
Yeah. First time we did this, she had her laptop, her tablet, and her phone going. So her whole dining room is full of crystal bowls. She's probably got 30 crystal bowls in her whole dining room. So
Oh my gosh!
I don't know.
Bless you.
When she comes back, I'll ask her.
I don't know whether I joined the right meeting. Have you got me there?
We can hear you. Oh, do you need me to
Might be easier.
let you in?
Yes, please.
I don't have a request here.
Okay, would you make your claim, please?
You need.
Or ask me? I'm obviously in the wrong meeting.
Okay, the number for you is, let me just see. Hang on a minute.
You want the meeting after, Cindy?
A minute. Pardon?
Pardon?
Yeah, she needs the meeting number. Do you have it?
964 325
964.
3325 8953.
I joined with a personal link name. Okay. I don't think I got that one. Okay. That's not going to work for me because I can't hear you well enough here. Okay. I should have had this up and ready.
If it's not going to work, that's. If it's not going to work, that's okay.
If you could just send me a quick invite, it would come through to my email and I would just click, oh, just make it. Maybe I've got it. Join. You just make it. Yeah, we got it. Okay, fine. I do have it. Found it.
All right. I just sent it.
Now I just need to mute this one, I think.